What is intelligence? How can we improve it? And why does it matter? These are some of the questions that have fascinated and challenged humans for centuries. Intelligence is often defined as the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills, or the ability to solve problems and adapt to new situations. Intelligence is not a fixed or innate trait that we are born with, but a dynamic and malleable quality that we can develop and enhance throughout our lives. Intelligence is also not a single or simple dimension, but a complex and multifaceted construct that involves various aspects such as memory, reasoning, creativity, emotional intelligence, and social intelligence. Different types of intelligence may require different strategies and methods to improve them, and different situations and domains may demand different kinds of intelligence to succeed in them. One of the most effective and practical ways to increase your intelligence is to adopt and practice a philosophy of life that can guide and support your learning and growth. A philosophy of life is a set of principles and values that can help you understand yourself and the world and shape your thoughts and actions. A philosophy of life can provide you with a framework and a direction for your personal and professional development and help you overcome the challenges and difficulties that you may encounter along the way. One of the most ancient and influential philosophies of life is Stoicism. Stoicism is a school of philosophy that originated in ancient Greece and Rome and was practiced by some of the most eminent and successful figures in history, such as Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, and Zeno of Citium. Stoicism teaches how to live a virtuous and rational life in harmony with nature and the universe. Stoics believe that we can control our own thoughts and actions, but not the external events or circumstances that happen to us. Therefore, they focus on developing self-discipline, wisdom, courage, justice, and tranquility. Change is inevitable. The world is constantly changing, and so are we. Nothing stays the same forever. Everything is in a state of flux, from the smallest atoms to the largest galaxies. Change is the natural order of things and the only constant in life. However, change is not always easy or welcome. We often resist change because we fear the unknown, we prefer the familiar, and we dislike the uncomfortable. We cling to our habits, routines, and expectations, and we try to avoid or control the changes that happen to us or around us. We may feel anxious, angry, or sad when we face changes that we do not like or understand, such as losing a job, moving to a new place, ending a relationship, or facing a health issue. But resisting change is futile and harmful. It only causes us more stress, frustration, and suffering. It also prevents us from learning, growing, and improving. By resisting change, we limit our potential and miss out on the opportunities and possibilities that change can bring. Stoicism teaches us a different way to deal with change. Instead of resisting change, Stoics embrace change. They accept and adapt to the changing circumstances of life, and they use them as opportunities for growth and learning. They do not let change affect their happiness and peace of mind, but rather use it as a catalyst for their intelligence and wisdom. How do Stoics embrace change? Here are some of the techniques that they use. Understand the nature of change. Stoics understand that change is natural, inevitable, and universal. They do not see change as something personal, arbitrary, or unfair, but as something impersonal, rational, and lawful. They recognize that change is governed by the laws of nature and the universe, and that everything has a cause and a purpose. They also realize that change is relative, and that what seems good or bad, desirable or undesirable, depends on our perspective and judgment. By understanding the nature of change, Stoics reduce their fear and anxiety and increase their curiosity and appreciation. Focus on what you can control. Stoics focus on what they can control and ignore what they cannot control. They know that they can control their own thoughts and actions, but not the external events or circumstances that happen to them. They do not waste their time and energy on trying to change or prevent what is outside their control, but rather concentrate on changing and improving what is within their control. They do not let the external changes affect their internal state, but rather use their internal state to influence their external actions. By focusing on what they can control, Stoics increase their self-discipline and self-confidence and decrease their stress and frustration. Adapt to the situation. Stoics adapt to the situation and make the best of it. They do not complain or regret about the changes that happen to them, but rather accept and adjust to them. They do not cling to the past or worry about the future, but rather live in the present and deal with the reality. They do not resist or avoid the challenges and difficulties that change brings, but rather face and overcome them. They do not let the changes limit or define them, but rather use them to expand and express themselves. By adapting to the situation, Stoics enhance their flexibility and resilience and improve their performance and results. Learn from the experience. Stoics learn from the experience and use it as a source of growth and learning. They do not see change as a threat or a loss, but as an opportunity and a gain. They do not let the changes diminish or damage them, but rather use them to enrich and strengthen them. They do not repeat the same mistakes or fall into the same traps, but rather learn from their errors and feedback. They do not settle for the status quo or stagnate in their comfort zone, but rather seek new knowledge and skills and explore new possibilities and domains. By learning from the experience, Stoics boost their intelligence and wisdom and achieve their goals and potential. By embracing change, Stoics not only cope with change, but also thrive on change. They turn change from a problem into a solution, from a weakness into a strength, from a curse into a blessing. They use change as a tool and a teacher to increase their intelligence and improve their life. We are social beings. We need and want to interact with other people, to communicate, cooperate, and collaborate. We are also curious beings. We want to learn and discover new things to expand our horizons and perspectives. However, we often limit ourselves to interacting with people who are similar to us, who share our views, values, and interests. We tend to avoid or ignore people who are different from us, who challenge our assumptions, opinions, and beliefs. We may feel uncomfortable, threatened, or bored by the diversity of human experience and knowledge, but limiting ourselves to interacting with people who are similar to us is detrimental and wasteful. It not only deprives us of the opportunity to learn from others, but also reinforces our biases and prejudices. It also reduces our creativity and innovation, as we miss out on the potential synergies and insights that can arise from combining different ideas and perspectives. It also hinders our intelligence and wisdom, as we fail to appreciate and understand the complexity and richness of reality. Stoicism teaches us a different way to interact with people. Instead of limiting ourselves to interacting with people who are similar to us, Stoics seek diverse interactions. They interact with different people, perspectives, and cultures, and they benefit from the diversity of human experience and knowledge. They do not let their differences divide or deter them, but rather use them to unite and enrich them. How do Stoics seek diverse interactions? Here are some of the techniques that they use. Respect everyone. Stoics respect everyone, regardless of their background, status, or identity. They do not judge or discriminate people based on their appearance, race, gender, religion, or any other superficial or arbitrary criteria. They recognize that everyone is a human being and that everyone has inherent dignity and worth. They also acknowledge that everyone has something to offer and that everyone can teach or learn something from anyone. By respecting everyone, Stoics foster a positive and constructive attitude towards others and create a conducive and harmonious environment for interaction. Listen actively. Stoics listen actively and pay attention to what others say and do. They do not interrupt or dominate the conversation, but rather give others the space and time to express themselves. They do not assume or impose their own interpretation, but rather seek to understand the meaning and intention of others. They do not dismiss or contradict others, but rather acknowledge and appreciate their views and values. By listening actively, Stoics show their interest and curiosity towards others and enhance their comprehension and empathy. Ask questions. Stoics ask questions and seek to learn more about others. They do not take things for granted or at face value, but rather probe deeper and wider. They do not ask superficial or irrelevant questions, but rather ask meaningful and relevant questions. They do not ask closed or leading questions, but rather ask open and exploratory questions. They do not ask questions to challenge or criticize others, but rather to clarify and understand them. By asking questions, Stoics demonstrate their willingness and eagerness to learn from others and improve their knowledge and skills. Share openly. Stoics share openly and offer their own thoughts and experiences to others. They do not hide or withhold their information or opinions, but rather disclose and communicate them. They do not exaggerate or distort their facts or feelings, but rather present and express them honestly and accurately. They do not impose or force their ideas or perspectives, but rather propose and suggest them respectfully and humbly. They do not share to impress or persuade others, but rather to inform and inspire them. By sharing openly, Stoics contribute their value and uniqueness to others and increase their understanding and expression. Seek feedback. Stoics seek feedback and welcome the input and advice of others. They do not avoid or ignore the feedback or criticism of others, but rather solicit and receive them. They do not reject or defend against the feedback or criticism of others, but rather accept and consider them. They do not take the feedback or criticism of others personally or negatively, but rather take them objectively and positively. They do not seek feedback to confirm or justify themselves, but rather to improve and correct themselves. By seeking feedback, Stoics show their openness and willingness to change and grow and enhance their performance and results. We are surrounded by a vast and wonderful world, full of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and sensations. We are also endowed with a complex and amazing mind, full of thoughts, feelings, memories, and imaginations. However, we often miss or ignore the richness and beauty of our world and our mind. Because we are distracted, bored, or indifferent, we tend to overlook or take for granted the details and nuances of our environment and our experience, and we rely on our habitual and automatic responses and reactions. We may miss the opportunities and possibilities that our world and our mind offer us, and we may misunderstand or misinterpret the reality and ourselves. But missing or ignoring the richness and beauty of our world and our mind is wasteful and harmful. It not only deprives us of the joy and wonder of life, but also impairs our intelligence and wisdom. It also reduces our awareness and attention as we lose touch with the present moment and ourselves. It also hinders our perception and understanding as we fall prey to illusions and delusions. Stoicism teaches us a different way to experience our world and our mind. Instead of missing or ignoring the richness and beauty of our world and our mind, Stoics practice mindful observation. They observe themselves and the world around them with attention and curiosity, and they improve their perception and understanding of reality and themselves. They do not let their distractions, boredom, or indifference cloud or distort their vision and awareness, but rather use them to sharpen and enhance them. How do Stoics practice mindful observation? Observe without judgment. Stoics observe without judgment and see things as they are, not as they wish or fear them to be. They do not impose their own preferences, expectations, or opinions on what they observe, but rather accept and appreciate them for what they are. They do not label or evaluate what they observe as good or bad, right or wrong, pleasant or unpleasant, but rather describe and understand them as facts and phenomena. By observing without judgment, Stoics reduce their bias and prejudice and increase their objectivity and accuracy. All observe with curiosity. Stoics observe with curiosity and explore the unknown and the unfamiliar. They do not limit their observation to what they already know or expect, but rather expand their observation to what they do not know or anticipate. They do not settle for the superficial or the obvious, but rather delve into the deeper and the hidden. They do not assume or guess what they observe, but rather inquire and investigate it. By observing with curiosity, Stoics stimulate their interest and enthusiasm and enhance their learning and discovery. Observe with attention. Stoics observe with attention and focus on the present and the relevant. They do not let their attention wander or drift to the past or the future, or to the irrelevant or the trivial, but rather keep their attention on the here and now, and on the important and the significant. They do not divide or dilute their attention among multiple or competing stimuli, but rather concentrate and direct their attention to one or few stimuli. They do not lose or neglect their attention to the distractions or interruptions, but rather maintain and sustain their attention despite them. By observing with attention, Stoics optimize their energy and performance and improve their concentration and memory. Observe with awareness. Stoics observe with awareness and notice the patterns and the connections. They do not isolate or separate what they observe from the context and the system, but rather relate and integrate what they observe to the whole and the parts. They do not ignore or overlook the similarities and the differences, the causes and the effects, the trends and the changes, but rather recognize and analyze them. They do not accept or follow what they observe blindly or passively, but rather question and evaluate what they observe critically and actively. By observing with awareness, Stoics broaden their perspective and insight and enhance their logic and creativity. Observe with reflection. Stoics observe with reflection and learn from their observation. They do not forget or dismiss what they observe, but rather remember and review it. They do not repeat or copy what they observe, but rather apply and adapt it. They do not stop or end their observation, but rather continue and extend it. They do not observe for the sake of observing, but rather observe for the sake of learning and improving. By observing with reflection, Stoics consolidate and apply their knowledge and skills and boost their intelligence and wisdom. By practicing mindful observation, Stoics not only enjoy and appreciate the richness and beauty of their world and their mind, but also benefit from it. They use mindful observation as a tool and a method to improve their perception and understanding of reality and themselves. They use mindful observation to see more, to learn more, and to be more. We all have assumptions. Assumptions are the beliefs, opinions, and judgments that we hold about ourselves, others, and the world. Assumptions are the basis of our thinking, decision-making, and action-taking. Assumptions are also the filters and lenses through which we perceive and interpret reality. However, assumptions are not always true or valid. We often form our assumptions based on incomplete, inaccurate, or outdated information, or influenced by our emotions, preferences, or biases. We also tend to confirm and reinforce our assumptions by seeking and accepting evidence that supports them and ignoring or rejecting evidence that contradicts them. We may become attached or identified with our assumptions and resist or defend them against any challenge or change. We may also impose or project our assumptions onto others and expect or demand them to conform to them. But holding on to false or invalid assumptions is detrimental and dangerous. It not only limits and distorts our intelligence and wisdom, but also causes us problems and conflicts. It also reduces our learning and growth. as we miss out on the opportunities and possibilities that reality and ourselves offer us. It also hinders our perception and understanding as we fall prey to illusions and delusions. Stoicism teaches us a different way to deal with our assumptions. Instead of holding on to our assumptions, Stoics challenge their assumptions. They question and test their beliefs, opinions, and judgments, and they avoid biases and errors in their thinking. They do not let their assumptions blind or deceive them, but rather use them to enlighten and improve them. How do Stoics challenge their assumptions? Identify your assumptions. Stoics identify their assumptions and make them explicit and clear. They do not take their assumptions for granted or at face value, but rather examine and expose them. They do not confuse their assumptions with facts or truths, but rather distinguish and separate them. They do not hide or deny their assumptions, but rather acknowledge and admit them. By identifying their assumptions, Stoics increase their self-awareness and self-knowledge and improve their clarity and accuracy. Question your assumptions. Stoics question their assumptions and seek to understand and justify them. They do not accept their assumptions uncritically or unquestioningly, but rather challenge and scrutinize them. They do not rely on their assumptions blindly or passively, but rather verify and validate them. They do not follow their assumptions automatically or habitually, but rather choose and decide them. By questioning their assumptions, Stoics enhance their critical and rational thinking and improve their logic and reasoning. Test your assumptions. Stoics test their assumptions and compare and contrast them with reality and evidence. They do not ignore or reject the feedback or criticism of reality in others, but rather solicit and receive them. They do not defend or justify their assumptions against reality and evidence, but rather adapt and correct them. They do not stick to their assumptions stubbornly or rigidly, but rather change and update them. By testing their assumptions, Stoics optimize their performance and results, and improve their learning and growth. Avoid biases. Stoics avoid biases and eliminate or reduce the influences and distortions that affect their thinking and judgment. They do not let their emotions, preferences, or prejudices cloud or sway their thinking and judgment, but rather control and balance them. They do not let their ego, pride, or vanity inflate or deflate their thinking and judgment, but rather moderate and humble them. They do not let their habits, routines, or expectations limit or constrain their thinking and judgment, but rather diversify and expand them. By avoiding biases, Stoics foster a fair and objective attitude towards themselves, others, and the world, and improve their comprehension and empathy. Seek alternatives. Stoics seek alternatives and explore and consider different or opposite beliefs, opinions, and judgments. They do not limit their thinking and judgment to one or few assumptions, but rather expand their thinking and judgment to many or diverse assumptions. They do not dismiss or contradict the assumptions of others, but rather acknowledge and appreciate them. They do not conform or compromise with the assumptions of others, but rather combine and innovate them. By seeking alternatives, Stoics broaden their perspective and insight and enhance their creativity and innovation. By challenging their assumptions, Stoics not only cope with the uncertainty and complexity of reality and themselves, but also thrive on it. They turn their assumptions from a liability into an asset, from a weakness into a strength, from a problem into a solution. They use their assumptions as a tool and a method to improve their perception and understanding of reality and themselves. They use their assumptions to think better, to learn better, and to be better. We all make mistakes. Mistakes are the errors, failures, or shortcomings that we commit or encounter in our thinking, decision-making, or action-taking. Mistakes are the inevitable and unavoidable consequences of our imperfect and limited knowledge, skills, and abilities. Mistakes are also the natural and necessary steps of our learning and growth process. However, mistakes are not always easy or welcome. We often deny, hide, or blame our mistakes because we fear the consequences. We feel ashamed or guilty, and we dislike the uncomfortable. We avoid or ignore the feedback or criticism that our mistakes provide us, and we resist or reject the changes or improvements that our mistakes require us to make. We may feel discouraged, frustrated, or angry when we make or face mistakes, and we may lose our confidence, motivation, or direction. But denying, hiding, or blaming our mistakes is futile and harmful. It only causes us more problems and conflicts, and it prevents us from learning, growing, and improving. By denying, hiding, or blaming our mistakes, we miss the opportunity and the possibility to correct and overcome them, and we repeat the same errors and failures. Stoicism teaches us a different way to deal with our mistakes. Instead of denying, hiding, or blaming our mistakes, Stoics learn from their mistakes. They acknowledge and analyze their mistakes, and they use them as feedback and lessons for improvement. They do not let their mistakes affect their happiness and peace of mind, but rather use them as a catalyst for their intelligence and wisdom. Stoics acknowledge their mistakes and take responsibility and ownership for them. They do not deny or hide their mistakes, but rather admit and disclose them. They do not blame or justify their mistakes, but rather accept and apologize for them. They do not take their mistakes personally or negatively, but rather take them objectively and positively. By acknowledging their mistakes, Stoics foster an honest and humble attitude towards themselves and create a conducive and supportive environment for learning. We all need feedback and criticism. Feedback and criticism are the input, advice, and evaluation that we receive from others about our thoughts, decisions, and actions. Feedback and criticism are the essential and valuable sources of information and guidance that can help us improve our intelligence and wisdom and our life. However, feedback and criticism are not always easy or welcome. We often avoid or ignore the feedback and criticism of others because we fear the consequences. We feel insecure or offended, and we dislike the uncomfortable. We resist or reject the feedback and criticism of others, and we defend or justify ourselves against them. We may feel discouraged, frustrated, or angry when we receive or face feedback and criticism, and we may lose our confidence, motivation, or direction. But avoiding or ignoring the feedback and criticism of others is futile and harmful. It not only deprives you of the opportunity and the possibility to learn from others, but also reinforces our biases and errors. It also reduces our performance and results, as we miss out on the potential improvements and corrections that feedback and criticism can provide us. It also hinders our perception and understanding as we fall prey to illusions and delusions. Stoicism teaches us a different way to deal with feedback and criticism. Instead of avoiding or ignoring the feedback and criticism of others, Stoics seek feedback and criticism. They solicit and receive feedback and criticism from others, and they use them as sources of information and guidance. They do not let feedback and criticism affect their happiness and peace of mind, but rather use them as a catalyst for their intelligence and wisdom. Stoics choose their sources and seek feedback and criticism from people who are credible, relevant, and constructive. They do not seek feedback and criticism from people who are unreliable, irrelevant, or destructive, but rather avoid or ignore them. They do not seek feedback and criticism from people who are similar to them, who share their views, values, and interests, but rather seek feedback and criticism from people who are different from them, who challenge their assumptions, opinions, and beliefs. They do not seek feedback and criticism from people who are superficial or general, but rather seek feedback and criticism from people who are specific and detailed. Reading and studying are essential activities for anyone who wants to improve their intelligence and wisdom. Reading and studying expose us to new information, ideas, perspectives, and insights that can enrich our minds and broaden our horizons. Reading and studying can also challenge our assumptions, beliefs, and opinions, and help us develop critical thinking, analytical, and creative skills. However, not all reading and studying are equally beneficial for our intelligence. Some reading and studying can be superficial, passive, or narrow-minded, and may not contribute much to our learning and growth. To maximize the benefits of reading and studying, we need to adopt some strategies and habits that can enhance our comprehension, retention, and application of what we read and study. Stoicism can help us with this, as it teaches us how to read and study widely, with curiosity, depth, and purpose. Read and study various topics and disciplines. Don't limit yourself to one field or domain of knowledge, but explore different subjects and areas that interest you or are relevant to your goals. For example, you can read and study about history, philosophy, science, art, literature, psychology, economics, politics, religion, culture, and so on. By reading and studying various topics and disciplines, you can increase your general knowledge, expand your vocabulary, discover new connections and patterns, and develop a more holistic and interdisciplinary understanding of the world and yourself. Read and study from different sources and formats. Don't rely on one source or format of information, but diversify your reading and studying materials and methods. For example, you can read and study from books, articles, journals, magazines, newspapers, websites, blogs, podcasts, videos, documentaries, courses, lectures, seminars, workshops, and so on. By reading and studying from different sources and formats, you can access more and varied information, compare and contrast different viewpoints and arguments, evaluate the quality and credibility of the information, and choose the most suitable and effective way of learning for yourself. Writing and reflecting are powerful tools for developing self-awareness and emotional intelligence. Writing and reflecting allow us to express ourselves, process our experiences, and gain insights into our inner world. Writing and reflecting can also help us identify patterns, habits, and goals in our lives and make changes accordingly. Write and reflect daily. Make writing and reflecting a part of your daily routine, preferably in the morning or evening. You can use a journal, a notebook, a computer, or any other medium that suits you. The important thing is to write and reflect consistently and frequently, as this will help you develop the habit and reap the benefits. Write and reflect freely. Don't censor yourself or worry about grammar, spelling, or style. Just write and reflect whatever comes to your mind without judging or editing. The goal is to capture your thoughts, feelings, and experiences as they are, not as you think they should be. Be honest and authentic with yourself and don't hold back. Write and reflect specifically. Don't be vague or general in your writing and reflecting. Use specific examples, details, and evidence to support your statements. For example, instead of writing, "I feel angry," write, "I feel angry because my boss criticized me unfairly in front of everyone." This will help you understand the causes and consequences of your emotions, thoughts, and actions.